Ramsuratkumar ki
Jai.
Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar Arpanamastu. Now today is another gift of grace from Bhagwan. For chanting his name together, looking at his form, having our hearts filled. Our grateful pranams to Bhagwan. We have been going through some of the experiences of the devotees. For one thing, they are delightful. And then, let's remember what Bhagwan said, that even if you remember the coconut shell that he used, there would be a new gift of grace from him. So, what to say of the demonstrations of love? Each Leela is his love, compassion in action. So after listening to the Leela, after reliving the experience of somebody with our heart, we make it our own. And the grace of the Leela belongs to us. Now, in the beginning, when the ashram started, after Bhagwan became sick, his body, he shifted to Sudama, and he shifted on November 22nd. Another 8 or 9 days, his Jayanti followed, the first Jayanti on the ashram ground. By then he became a little all right, not completely so. But then it was also winter. We used to walk, at that time there was no car or anything. We used to walk from Sudama 3 times a day. That morning, 7 o'clock, Bhagwan would come to the ashram ground. At that time it was full of stones, thorns and bushes, rocks of all sizes and shapes. And there was hardly any vegetation. There was one tree though, a palm tree, very tall, the only vegetation, and it wasn't green at all. Bhagwan would come, walk into the ashram, sit anywhere, and looking at the mountain, he would start smoking. Now, in the beginning, as I said, after some time, we began to feel the bareness of the ground. And then the talk came about filling it with greens, the greeneries. Shri Vijayanand of Thuthukudi, son of Srimati Rajeswari Amma, has a farm. Even now he has a farm which he is running very successfully. And the way he was interested in the growth of all these plants and trees in a very special way won him awards. So he came forward. They're all very devoted to Bhagwan, the whole family. He came to offer. He said, we could plant the trees straight away, not just saplings. We could plant the tree itself, and the Neem tree is one such. And he said the ashram would begin to look green very soon. So with Bhagwan's permission, he brought some 18 of them, just the trunks. No leaves, no branches, on either side, well cut. And he brought them in a lorry. And the first planting of the tree, you can even see the photograph there in the abode. Bhagwan touching the tree, and the tree, after digging a pit, a very deep pit, they would be lifting it and bringing it down into the pit, and Bhagwan would be touching it with one hand, giving a hand. Is it just giving a hand? He is all the hands that held it. He is the strength behind it. And very soon all the 18 were planted around the Pradhan Mandir. And within 2 months, though of course a few of them did not grow at all, but the rest bloomed. Very soon there were foliage. And within months, the ashram began to look green. Soon Shri Vijayanand brought other flower plants and trees also. Bhagwan was very particular about some trees. Especially, there was one Nagalinga tree. There still is, and it's giving such yield. It is on the other side, that is, you enter the Pradhan Mandir, from the gate you come straight and enter. The opposite side, there is a Nagalinga flower. And it was planted there and it grew tall. And there was also foliage, but there was no sign of flower. I used to wonder. And then one day, Bhagwan had the door open that side. And he kept somebody there so that people would not enter without his noticing. And then he called me, he said, I was here, sitting here wondering, this Nagalinga is not flowering at all. Then he just looked at me straight in the eye and called me near and said, Devaki, you go out, there's a Nagalinga tree there. This beggar would like you to go and touch that a few seconds and come back. So this demonstration, this Leela was going on for a few days. He would ask me to go and touch that and stand there touching it for some time and then come back. Now it's full of flowers and it's a huge tree, and what's more, the flowers are very special. They have a very special color. They are more red than the other ones elsewhere. What could he not do? His Sankalpa. We see the Kripa the grace of his Sankalpa everywhere in the ashram. In Sudama, on the Grihapravesham day, Bhagwan planted a gooseberry sapling given by Shri Vijayanand of Tuticorin. He himself poured water. Bhagwan became very fond of this tree. In fact, the time he spent in Sudama, he was there in the veranda all the time, pouring rain or burning sun. He was there in the veranda. It just did not matter to him. Sometimes the walls were very hot. We could not lean on them. But he never cared one way or the other. And we could not switch on the fan, even if he was sweating profusely, because he never liked any of those electric gadgets. He never liked a fridge. He never liked a fan. And so we had to resort to other ways, like we would sprinkle water everywhere, every half an hour, and then we would take a thick sheet, what we call the bed sheet, and then put it in water, and without squeezing it, we would put it behind him on the sides, so that as they began to dry, it will be less hot. It would be less hot. But he was very fond of this tree. He said it was a divine tree. And when he would go promptly near every day, sit down there, put his hand and say, "Devaki, do you know there's a divine tree? This very special tree of my father. Do you know, Devaki? All the devatas are living at the root. It's my father's tree." And then he would say, nobody should pluck any fruit from that. If it fell down of its own accord, then we could pick it up. And he said, they are father's special fruits, full of his blessings. Nobody should harm the tree. Nobody should even pluck the gooseberries. Such was his love, fondness for the tree, not because it was the divine tree, it was also, he did not want any harm, any pain to come to the tree. Because I remember once, we have already gone through it, but remembering it again and again would deepen our faith and his blessing. One day when Bhagwan was seated there in the veranda smoking, I was sitting by his side doing japa, and all of a sudden Bhagwan began to writhe in pain. As though something terrible was happening to him. I was alarmed, very disturbed. And just as horrified, I was looking at him, and suddenly in a jump he got up. He ran down the steps of Sudama, went round to the next plot. And there he stood like Lord Rama, 1 foot a little in the front, and looked up. His face was radiant but red, of some deep emotion. And there were tears in his eyes, and up on the tree we could see, I ran after him and stood by his side and looked up. There were 4 or 5 people plucking the leaves, one after the other, pluck, pluck, pluck. And every pluck was disturbing him. They were filling up, they were fast filling up the gunny bags they had brought with them, because the next day was a festival day, Saraswati Puja day. Very auspicious, these mango leaves. When you tie them up with a string and put it in the puja room or at the doorstep, they would bring in auspicious tidings. So it's a common tradition here. They were not to be blamed because it was a done thing. But then Bhagwan, who has identification with the whole cosmos, his identification with the tree, he felt the pain of the tree. Every pluck caused immense pain in him. Just as the tree was going through the pain, he was going through its pain. And there were tears, but as soon as those men saw Bhagwan standing there, they immediately jumped down and ran away. People like Bhagwan, the Jnanis, the seers, the seer of truth, the ultimate truth, they are like the mirror. They have no identity of their own. A mirror simply reflects whatever is in front. So Bhagwan was like the mirror, identifying himself with every being. He could feel immensely the pain and the suffering of others. But this can happen only when the ego is completely gone. And there was a champak tree next to this. When the champak tree was brought as a sapling and planted there, some people who used to visit Sudama, they were challenging. They said, oh, this is a hot earth. This is this mountain, stone mountain, and there are only rocks. It's a rock powder. This champak is very gentle and it would die within 10 days. When the lady said that, I felt very disturbed and ran to Bhagwan. I said this. Bhagwan laughed and said, oh, Devaki, don't worry. They don't know my father. My father would see to it that this tree grows well. You don't worry about it. And my God, what a growth. Thick foliage. And soon there were flowers at every branch and bunches of them. They were pouring flowers, the tree, to the surprise and delight of all around. Every day, I would go and pluck 4, bring it to Bhagwan early in the morning so that Bhagwan would distribute one to each of us. Every day. And there were so many. But one day, after 4 or 5 years, there was rain. It was raining cats and dogs, as they say, for days. And it filled up the streets. It filled up every nook and corner. There was a stream up there on the mountain, a very rare sight. And the water entered Sudama and began to stagnate. There was no way it could be taken out because outside the lane was also filled with water and it continued to rain. So the waters seeped through the earth to the very root of the tree. And soon the roots lost their strength and the leaves began to fall down. Every day we saw the tree dying slowly. Bhagwan called some people, the gardener from the ashram. They tried to do something. It just didn't work. And finally, the tree also fell down. But even then, by then, the rain had stopped. So Bhagwan said, we should not throw it away. it has served this beggar very well. So this beggar doesn't want that to be used in any other way. And then he told those people, some people, to lift it and put it there on the terrace of Sudama. He would not allow people to touch it. Such is the depth of his love for even the plants that serve. What to say of people who serve him? I remember a man used to come to Sannidhi Street House, and Bhagwan would take the trouble to go inside and bring out an apple. And then Bhagwan told the people around, oh, he used to give this beggar tea. Then somebody asked him, we all thought that he was giving tea to Bhagwan every day. He had a tea stall near Beggar. So everybody thought that he was probably providing Bhagwan with tea every day. But Bhagwan said only 3 years, and in 3 years he might have given this beggar tea 3 times. For which sake, every time this man appeared at his doorstep, Bhagwan would take the trouble to go inside and bring an apple. So you see how Bhagwan held every being, be it a plant, tree, or an animal, or human being. Now, in the one day, there was when we were coming to the ashram in the car, there was a herd of goats. And there were about 60 of them. They were all there. We were surprised. They were standing right outside the ashram, and they would not give way to the car. With difficulty, we could wade through them. And then as soon as Bhagwan stepped into the ashram, he asked the then trustee, money. Money. What happened? We see so many goats outside. And that is when he also noticed, because those people, it was early mornings, it was just 7 o'clock. And then they found out the shepherd was not there. And they looked around searching for him, and they could not find him. They came back and reported, and Bhagwan said, okay, doesn't matter. The shepherd would come and collect them later on. But now they must be feeling hungry. Somebody must take them up for grazing. Money. Can you find somebody? Yes, Swamiji. And then he called Saravana, the gardener. And then Bhagwan asked, Saravana, can you do this? Can you take this, the herd of goat, for grazing? Yes, Swami, I will do it. Then Saravana took them all away to a green pasture, and he came back only around 4 o'clock. In the meantime, they tried to search for the owner of the goats, and they couldn't find. About 4 o'clock, when he returned with a herd, the owner by then had come, and he found it. I believe he was searching. The surprising thing is, this herd of goats, sheep, They had found their way to the ashram on their own. They were all held up in the owner's house in the backyard. Even the owner did not know how they got there. They had somehow found their way to the doorstep of Bhagwan's ashram, and of course knowing that Bhagwan, even while entering the ashram, stopped the car and blessed. And again at 4 o'clock, before he left them with the owner, he blessed all those animals. He cares. He cared. He still cares. He is the mother, the divine mother. I remember just a few years back, maybe 4 years, 5 years, the peacock. There was a peacock with beautiful feathers, and it was just moving about briskly. Everybody used to admire its beauty. There were 3 or 4 of them going around. And suddenly one day, evening, this peacock, it somehow found its way to the abode. Went inside, it staggered a little, and then it found that huge photograph of Bhagwan in the abode. It sat there, rested at his feet, and then left the body. How did we know it staggered? One Ved Pathshala student, Vidyarthi, was going into the kitchen to bring the offering, the anna, the mahannam, the rice cooked for the puja, the evening puja, when he noticed this peacock coming inside, staggering its way to Bhagwan's feet, and promptly there it sat down and left its body. How did it find all these animals, the plants in the ashram? Must be some great souls to find their way to this place and to stay put in the Shakti of Bhagwan, in the vibrant presence of Bhagwan. How did they find their way? And true to that, soon after its death, somebody came to Pradhan Mandir. Atiti Mataji brought somebody here, and she said, this man can do Shiva Purana very well. So he sat there, he started reciting Shiva Purana. By tradition, if any Shiva Bhakta dies, they would be reciting Shiva Puranam there. It all arranged itself. Now we could go on narrating one after the other the stories of his compassion, his gracious blessing, the Leelas, the demonstrations of his love in action towards his devotees, be it a plant or an animal or a human being. Now this Bhagwan is here, right in front of us, with his hand raised in a gesture of blessing. He has said, those who enter this ashram will not go back empty-handed. That my Father's blessings are pouring like rain, whether they are aware of it or not. It is the truth. This is his assurance, constant assurance to us. So today we shall submit our prayers at his feet. Bhagwan,